Hey guys, if you want the latest and top stories, go to SaraACarter.com. That's SaraACarter.com. You can also check out the podcast page and download the Sara Carter Show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the podcast. Today, I want to discuss something with you that you all know is coming, and that is the midterm elections, guys. We have been waiting for this. We were talking about it in 2021 when November 2022 can't come fast enough. And now with everything that's been happening in the world, I mean, it really cannot come fast enough. But we need to pay attention to them right now. We all need to be paying attention in our own states to what is happening and to who we need to be voting for. And believe me, we don't want the same old, same old. We want disruptors. We want people that are going to go in there that are going to make a difference. Whether that's Republican or Democrat, I don't care. But we want people that are not going to play the same old games that we have seen all along. And that is what I'm going to be talking about on this show. Republicans, I believe, will take back the House and the Senate and slam the brakes on all of these radical agendas that are coming out of Joe Biden's administration. Make him a lame duck. Make him a lame duck. I'll also speak with Jake Bequette. He is running for the U.S. Senate candidate in Arkansas in the primary, and Jake is running against an incumbent Republican, and he is going to explain to you why he believes he will be elected, why he is a disruptor, and what we all need to start doing in order to win back our nation. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at SaraACarter.com. That is SaraACarter.com. And while you're there, folks, just sign up for our email list so that you do not get shadow banned. We don't want you to be shadow banned, right? We don't need that. Now, you all know I talk about AMAC all the time. Why? Because they're a sponsor of our show and because they stand up for the same values that we believe in. They really, really do. I love this organization. And now is a critical time for us to be vigilant in defense of our freedom. We have seen what is happening across our nation, and we can't win unless we're together on this. There is strength in numbers, folks, and together we can become one clear, resounding voice in Washington, D.C. AMAC believes in fighting the good fight against reckless government spending and the ever-expanding scope of the federal government, helping small businesses prosper, securing the border, supporting our military, and respecting our veterans. By joining AMAC, you're taking the first steps, listen to this, to saving the America that you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that other group offers, but without the liberal agenda. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That is amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join amac.us/Carter. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I had Missouri U.S. Senate candidate Eric Greitens on the show. And we talked about how our country is literally at stake, at all the values that we believe in this country, based in our Constitution, based in our Declaration of Independence. The whole reason we exist is literally at stake in the 2022 midterm elections. And I absolutely believe that, folks. I absolutely believe that. I think that's why every single show I talk about the values that make our nation so important and how each one of us are endowed with that, with freedom, that we are given that by God, and that we are an example, a beacon of light, our nation and every single one of us for the rest of the world. For the rest of the world. We're nearly 8 months away from the congressional midterm elections. There are 435 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives that are up for grabs, guys. 35 of those seats will be in the Senate, and a standard 34 seats in this cycle, plus a special election to fill the 4 years remaining in the term of Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma. He also announced last month that he will retire on January 3rd to take care of his ailing wife. In a twist, Californians will vote twice for the same Senate seat. And this is all coming from the Council on Foreign Relations. I don't usually go there, but this is what they are saying. One vote will be to fill the final 2 months left in what would have been Vice President Kamala Harris's term. The second will elect someone to fill that seat for a full term. So I want you to think about this. The Republicans have the best chance ever right now to be the biggest winner on election night. They are going to take control, and I really believe this, of both houses of Congress. But that's only if something bizarre doesn't happen between now and then, right? Because we've seen what's happened in our country. And I know a lot of you out there are feeling frustrated. Some of you actually believe that there was something, drastically wrong with the last election. Some of you believe that it was stolen. Others of you don't. Everybody's divided. The country's kind of upside down. But we can all agree on one thing, that we are a democracy, a great democracy, and that our nation must be able to move forward, that our people must be unified, and that we have to do what's best for us to preserve all those principles and values that were endowed to us by our founding fathers. That's the reason why our young men and women are out fighting the fight all the time, putting everything out on the line, whether that's in the military or the federal government, whether that's we're teaching our children at school. And I think we had a big wake-up call, right? We did in America over the last several years, and started with parents in Loudoun County, for example. Loudoun County, Virginia, standing up to critical race theory being taught to their children. It's with Governor DeSantis in Florida saying, no, you're not going to teach my kindergartner about sex. We don't need to go there. It starts with paying more attention to what's happening in our local communities and our everyday lives. We could go to work, and we all do, and some of us have to live paycheck to paycheck, and some of us can't even believe how high prices have gone in this country. Inflation is out of control, and we just want to protect our families. But that election in November, those midterm elections, are the beginning of you taking back control of your life and your community and your future and your children's future. We have seen the impact of socialist and Marxist ideology across our country, and my God, it terrifies me. So much has happened to us over the last 4 years that, from the rioting, and the presidential elections, and the officers who have been shot and the people who've been shot by officers, and oh my gosh, it's daunting. Now the war in Ukraine and the fear that we are up against our former and current nuclear rival, the possibility that a war could get much worse in Ukraine and on the European continent, that's terrifying to me. I know it's terrifying to you. When our founding fathers gave us the opportunity to have this amazing republic, this beautiful republic, this beautiful country, they put the power in our hands. And I think we just keep forgetting it. We keep forgetting this. But I think now we're kind of waking up. There's a great awakening happening, right? And it's because we're starting to realize that, hey, wait a minute, to the lawmakers and to these CEOs of these massive corporations that, by the way, we have made wealthy, you and I, by purchasing their products or by using their products. But we have had a great awakening where we're saying, wait a minute, you work for us. We don't work for you. You work for us. And if you are not doing the job that you need to be doing, then we are going to vote you out. And that's exactly what we have to do, folks. This is not just a referendum on the worst administration in the history of the United States, President Joe Biden's administration. I think he's given Jimmy Carter a great break. This is a referendum against all of Washington, D.C. This is a referendum against the lawmakers. And we have a chance now to say, get out. If you have not done the job, get out. Inflation, energy prices, we should be energy independent. National security, our border. These are going to be huge, huge races. And it's time. I'm telling you, it's time for some of our incumbent Republicans to go, bye-bye, hasta la vista, get out of here. Thanks, but no thanks. Get out. You have not done the job. And for voters to really listen and elect new conservatives. And I'll talk to one candidate who wants to do just that, Jake Bequette. And we'll be getting to him in just one moment. But before we get there, I want to talk to you about a great American product. You all know who I'm talking about. And the product that I'll be talking about, it is MyPillow. MyPillow is a great American company filled with great products, run by a great patriot, Mike Lindell. And all you have to do is go to mypillow.com/Carter to get phenomenal discount prices, guys. Towels are regularly, those big towel sets, $109.99. Think about that, $109.99. Now he'll sell the full set to you for $39.99. How about that? 6-piece towel set made with cotton grown in the U.S. No weird lotiony feel. Every set comes with 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. I have them in my house. I love them. And I just bought a bunch for my kids because I want them to have them too. While they're in college, it's great. This is a great time to buy these towel sets. They're available in every color and size, machine washable. They got a 60-day money-back guarantee, 1-year limited warranty. Think about that. For a limited time, get the MyPillow 6-piece towel set, regularly $109.99 for only $39.99 now with the promo code Carter, CARTER. Visit mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. You'll also find deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow mattress topper, MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets, I love those, and so much more. Get your 6-piece MyPillow towel set for only $39.99 today at mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221, mypillow.com/Carter. Without any further delay, I'm bringing on Jake Bequette. He's a former NFL player who won a Super Bowl ring with the New England Patriots in 2014. He later joined the U.S. Army. What a hero. Thank him so much for his service when you guys get out there and tweet back at him after the show. And he graduated from Ranger School and was deployed to Iraq with the 101st Airborne. He is now a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in Arkansas, challenging fellow Republican John Boozman. Guys, he is a disruptor. I'd like to thank Jake Bequette for being on the show. Jake, thank you so much for joining the Sara Carter Show. I was bragging about you at the top of the show in the monologue. You have so many accomplishments. But for those that are not visually watching this on YouTube or on Rumble, I want you to explain what you have right behind you, because you've got that helmet right behind you, and I want you to tell everybody about it.
Right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's great to join you. I love the show. Behind me is a priceless family heirloom. It is my dad's Razorback football helmet. I come from a bit of a Razorback football legacy here in Arkansas. My grandfather played for the Hogs back in the mid-1950s. That was before they had face masks. The helmet you see behind me, that's my dad's helmet. He played for Coach Lou Holtz, a great American patriot in the late 70s and early 80s. My uncle played after him, my dad's brother, in the mid to late 80s, and then I was very blessed to follow in their footsteps and play for the Hogs from 2008 to 2012. So I didn't really have a choice of what to do growing up. I always dreamed of playing for the Hogs. I worked very hard to achieve that goal. I didn't want to be the first in my family in 60 years to screw it up. But we had some great teams up there, and I was fortunate to be a team captain and be a part of 2 really good football teams my junior and senior year up on the Hill.
That is just awesome. That's such a family legacy to contend with. Now, you said, do you still have your grandfather's helmet?
No, I think that one disintegrated. He took too many shots to the head. I mean, he had the, I said he had no face mask. I mean, he had the smile to prove it. He's since passed away, but I mean, he had teeth knocked out. He would talk about games where, you play the entire game and everything would be fine. And then like the last couple of plays, you get a cleat in your mouth. I mean, imagine a football cleat in your mouth, just just teeth getting knocked out left and right. I mean, that was a different breed back in those days.
Man, you would have to be a different breed. I would be running in the opposite direction. I would be so unwarrior-like of me, getting a cleat in my mouth. I would be going the opposite. But you're a warrior, not only on the football field, but you're a warrior in the battlefield. I mean, you're a U.S. Army Ranger.
Yes, I mean, that was the true honor of my life, was serving our country in uniform. After my college football career, I played professionally for 4 years with the New England Patriots, was a very small part of a Super Bowl championship team there in 2015, Super Bowl 49. But I felt the call to serve our country in the Army. I enlisted in the Army, went through officer candidate school, commissioned as an infantry officer, volunteered and graduated from U.S. Army Ranger School, and then deployed to Iraq with the 101st Airborne Division. And just to be a part of such a storied legacy with the 101st, the Screaming Eagles, may everyone seen Band of Brothers, just to wear that Screaming Eagle patch on my shoulder to be in Iraq and just do something that I could do to serve my country. That's where I belonged. I've always seen myself as a leader. I led in sports. I led in the military as a platoon leader of a rifle company, and now I want to lead in the U.S. Senate as a conservative warrior representing the great state of Arkansas.
Boy, let me tell you, we really need more people like you in Congress and people running for Congress. I know what's kind of remarkable is how many young people are really standing up, as well as I think now seeing more service members coming in and running for Congress. Do you think that in America overall, we've seen like over the last 5 years, there's been so much division. People have been so frustrated. I'm going to get into this a little bit with you as we go into the show, but people have been so frustrated with what's been happening here from the woke culture to the fear that people can't say what they want anymore. A lot of strain, even among family members in the last few years with COVID, that I think young people are just standing up like you and saying, look, I want to make a difference in this country. I want to run for elected office because I believe that I can be a part of a change for the future for the better.
I agree. And I've seen the same thing in Arkansas. And you're right. You're seeing it across the country. Young people are standing up. I think people are sick and tired of the same old corrupt political establishment in both parties, these career politicians who are really pathetic leaders. They've sold our future generations down the river in exchange for, quick and easy benefits. And, I'm encouraged to be a part, hopefully, of this young cadre, this young core of bold, dynamic leaders who go to Washington. And you're right, a lot of them are military veterans. Right now, we are at an all-time low. Only 17% of members of Congress have a military background. Historically, it's been closer to 65 or 70%. Right now, we're only at 17. I'm not saying that all military veterans would be good members of Congress, but I am saying that I think the people of Arkansas and the people of this country, they want to send leaders to D.C. who have that mindset of servant leadership, of people who are willing to make a sacrifice, people who are willing to die for their beliefs. And not to be too dramatic, but that's what we need. We need people who have the spirit of 1776, the men who signed that Declaration of Independence. One of my favorite phrases in there is they say, "We pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." And they truly meant it. Even though they were victorious, of course, in the Revolution, many of those signatories, those men, they lost their lives. They lost their fortunes. And we need people with that mindset if we're going to take this country back.
Do you think that's why, Jake, you have literally skin in the game. That's what my husband used to say. When people have skin in the game, it's totally different. Your decisions are based on your experiences, your understanding of the possibilities of what could happen. But I think that for a lot of our lawmakers, they really don't have that idea, that skin in the game, right? That feeling of like, we understand what's going on here. And when we make a decision to send your young men and women overseas to fight in battle, it's because we absolutely understand what could happen. Do you think that there's less of that because there's less people that have experienced like what you've experienced and what others have experienced?
Well, I think you're exactly right, and I love your husband's phrase there, "skin in the game." I use that myself quite often because a lot of times we have lawmakers, we have politicians who go to DC and they get detached from the reality that their constituents, the voters, are experiencing on the ground. I mean, I think we saw that so poignantly over the past couple of years with the pandemic. I mean, obviously these corrupt members of Congress, they weren't missing any paychecks. They were still getting their direct deposit every month while they were instituting policies and lockdowns that crushed small businesses, that divided America into essential and non-essential workers. I saw it right here in Arkansas. The first thing I did when I came home after leaving the military was I started a nonprofit small business relief fund, almost like the Barstool Fund, but for Arkansas small businesses that help businesses that were crushed due to these government restrictions. And that simply has to change. And I think you're right. You see it in foreign policy. You see a lot of politicians in both parties. Look, you're never going to find someone who's as big of a hawk as me when it comes to China, but you see a lot of what happens in the Middle East. I'm totally against the idea of nation building. I saw it firsthand in Iraq. I mean, there are some countries where if they don't have the underpinning foundations of a civil society, we can't try to artificially create a Jeffersonian parliamentary democracy in these places. It's just not sustainable. It has to come from the bottom up, not the top down. And so often you see lawmakers, politicians in DC, it's not their kids who are going over there. Okay, it's not them who have served. Obviously, we're at 17% of veteran representation in Congress, so they don't really understand it. It's easy to go on TV and talk to the media and virtue signal, about all the bravery and how we're going to help all these people worldwide. What about America? We have a wide open southern border. 2 million people have come across the southern border this year alone. That's what the people of Arkansas truly care about. I was down in Texarkana yesterday, and what they care about, I mean, they care about the fentanyl crisis in their community. They care about how Main Street, Texarkana, Arkansas, has been gutted. They care about these things that are closer to home. I mean, these are patriotic people. They will always rise up to defend this country if we're attacked. I mean, I'm sure you saw Bryce Mitchell, who's a very proud Arkansan, a UFC fighter. He's been in the news. Just giving his very candid thoughts. I mean, he's a patriot. No one's ever going to question Bryce Mitchell's patriotism. But we have to focus on the issues that the people of Arkansas and the American people truly care about. And right now, that is not adventurism overseas.
That's such a great point. And I talk about it in my podcast a lot. I spend a lot of time on the U.S. southern border. It's wide open. It's a wide open sieve. And now, we see what's happening in Ukraine, and we see the focus of all of our lawmakers on Ukraine, but there's really no focus from this administration at all on our U.S.-Mexico southern border. I mean, at all. When I've seen there the possibility of direct impact on our national security here in the United States, right? It's just wide open, and it's a free-for-all. We've seen people die of fentanyl across this country, Arkansas as well. We've seen the rise of drug addiction. We've seen terrorists access that border. We have seen a humanitarian crisis that we've never seen before at the border just in the last few years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're exactly right in the way you describe it. It is a true crisis. It is not just a humanitarian crisis. It's a national security crisis because, as you identified, we've seen international terrorists who have been apprehended at the southern border. It's not just people coming from Mexico and Central America and South America. It's people from all over the world because the Biden administration has signaled to the rest of the world that America is wide open at our southern border. And that is totally unacceptable. Look, I think a great way to illustrate it, the previous administration under President Trump, they understood this danger. So one of my brigade combat team, when we were deployed to Mosul, Iraq in 2019, one of our sister brigades, the 3rd Brigade Combat Team, was deployed to the southern border because the last administration, they understood that federal troops had to get involved, that it was an all-the-above strategy, an all-out strategy to secure our southern border. And that's why the Democrats, I frankly believe it's part of their electoral strategy. They see people coming in as illegal immigrants, as future Democrat voters. That's why they're vociferously opposed to Cuban refugees and refugees from places like Venezuela because they know they lean to the right, but they look the other way and actively encourage people to come in across the southern border. And, it's frustrating to see, we saw this $1.5 trillion spending bill, and, there's token virtue signaling towards border security. There's funding for ICE, but really, that really all that ICE is right now, all Border Patrol is right now, is just a courier service, a taxi service for illegal immigrants to get them processed and get them distributed all over this country. So it's a true failure. We have a true crisis of national sovereignty along our own southern border, and we have to fix it. That's what the people of Arkansas care about, and that's what I want to go do, is represent their interests in D.C. and no one else's.
Well, you brought up something very important. You brought up the omnibus bill and the package and, wasteful spending. And you talk about, your experience overseas. And I agree with you, trying to build nations, and nation states. I saw it in Afghanistan when I was there. It's impossible. It's impossible. And we see wasteful hundreds of billions of dollars in Afghanistan that were wasted trying to build schools that would get blown up, hospitals that never made it past like the first layer of brick, and money that was entering the pockets of the bad guys. Why do you think we have such a hard time? And what do you think like Congress needs to do with oversight, with making sure that our taxpayer dollars aren't just thrown out there and wasted? And what can be done to change that? Because I feel like for me, I keep talking about this year after year after year with Congress, and taxpayer dollars just keep getting wasted, and young lives keep getting lost.
Well, I just think we have to send more people to represent us in D.C. who are unafraid to go against the Washington cartel, the establishment wing of both parties, because really what it's about, it's just about virtue signaling. I think a key example in what those things you've identified in Afghanistan and Iraq are exactly right, but another thing is this, $14 billion for Ukraine. This is the same leadership in both parties in the House and the Senate that said that $4 billion for a border wall along our southern border was too expensive. Okay, so $4 billion is too much to secure our own southern border, but we're going to send $14 billion to Ukraine. I mean, the dichotomy between, those two positions is just totally inexcusable. America is starting to see through it. And, I think President Trump, he was a harbinger of what's to come. People want to keep sending disruptors to D.C., people who aren't going to play the same old political games, who are going to actually stand up and speak the truth like you've been doing, like so many others have in conservative media. But we have to keep fighting. That's why I say this race, look, in Arkansas, this is just about one seat. But I think it's about more in terms of the message we're sending to the establishment. Because if I'm able to defeat this 20-plus year incumbent, we're going to send a shot across the bow to the Washington establishment. And just like how the Democrats do from these safe blue seats, we have to be effective as Republicans from these deep red seats. Okay, we have to send leaders in those deep red seats like Arkansas who are going to lead from the front, who are going to move the needle, who are going to actually stand up and fight on the issues that we've been discussing, that the people of Arkansas and millions of conservative and American First patriots really care about across this country. And that's the strategy I want to focus on.
Well, let's talk about that, because you're running against Republican John Boozman. What made you decide to do that? He's a fellow Republican. I mean, is that part of the strategy, is like getting into the Washington, D.C. swamp and kind of gutting it out and saying, look, we're here to fight for our constituents, and you're not doing that job?
Absolutely, because I think millions of Arkansans and Americans all across the country are realizing that Washington is broken, and it's a two-part problem. We all understand part one, which is the Democrats. They're radical left socialists, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. We all know that part of the problem. But the second part of the problem are these do-nothing, invisible establishment RINOs who simply refuse to stand up and fight. Because right now, quite frankly, what we have is controlled opposition. We have what I call the Washington Generals. I'm not sure if you grew up watching the Harlem Globetrotters, but they traveled with this team called the Washington Generals. And, they put on a good show. They put up a good fight. It was always a close game, but the Harlem Globetrotters always found a way to win, and the Washington Generals always found a way to lose. So I call the establishment Republican Party the Washington Generals. We have to change that dynamic. We have to send true warriors, conservative warriors, who are going to actually fight for their constituents' interests and move the needle, lead the charge, drag the rest of the caucus to the right, which is where the base is. There's this huge gap, I believe, between the beating heart of the GOP base, the grassroots, and their elected leaders. And I think President Trump identified that. I'm helping to identify that. You're seeing a lot of patriots across the country who are waking up to that. And in this election cycle, now is our time to change that dynamic for years to come.
I couldn't agree with you more. I always believed that the reason President Trump did so well and has done so well with the American people is because he is, I would say, the disruptor, like what he used to be called, the disruptor, right? He came into Washington and said, I'm not taking this anymore. And I love the way you describe them as the Washington Generals, because it does feel like that sometimes. People will say to me, like, what's wrong with the Republicans? Like, what's going on? They get right up to the point where you think they're going to have a win, and then all of a sudden they just throw their hands up in the air and walk away, and then they take a big loss.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, because really for most of them is, what I didn't invent this phrase, but I like to use it, is that Democrats go to Washington to do something, Republicans go there to be something. Okay, I think too many Republicans are just happy to be there. They're happy to have their name on a door, get their name in the paper, have people come and ask them for things. Okay, and that's not why Democrats go to D.C. They go to D.C. to fight for their ideology. And we have to have Republicans who aren't simply satisfied with just being there. Okay, we have too many career politicians, people who have been there for multiple decades. That's why I believe in term limits, but most importantly, it's why I believe in sending real warriors to D.C. who have that mindset that we spoke about earlier about the military, it's supposed to be a sacrifice. You're not supposed to be in D.C. for 40 years, cashing a paycheck, and then going into some lobbying job. You're supposed to be there to serve your constituents' interests, to go fight for what you believe, to rally others to your cause, and then to make way for the next generation. That's why I'm going, and I hope others will follow me.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people backing. When I listen to you, I think of when you talked about your father and your grandfather. I got to imagine they were a lot like you. Did you get a lot of your strength from? I'm guessing your mom too, but from your family.
Yes, I was very blessed to grow up in a family that was very patriotic. Believes in the state of Arkansas and believes in America. And just believes in the family values and the little r Republican values that this country was founded upon. I know that millions of Americans have not forsaken that. We get bombarded by the opposite view with the mainstream media, and as we talked about in sports and so many of our major institutions, even the military. But the real people, they haven't lost those values. It's not gone. As a matter of fact, I still think we're in the strong majority. But leadership matters. Okay, it starts at the top. It starts at the top and it trickles down. And we have to have incredible dynamic leaders to save this country. The same old politicians. What I say, Coach Belichick used to tell us all the time in New England. I'm sure you've heard the same saying, and he ripped it off. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you like the way things are going in Washington, then by all means, keep voting for the same people. But if you want to change, you're going to have to look to different voices, people who are not from the establishment wing of politics, people who are outsiders. I'm proud to be an outsider. Like, I'm proud to tell people that I don't come from a political background. I'm proud to tell people this is my first campaign. And I hope more people, more candidates like me will rise up across the country, because that's what it's going to take, is not people who are from the establishment, but people who are from the outside.
Wow. You know what? I think a lot of people are going to be listening to you. I think we're going to see you in the Senate. I want to talk to you really quick about, before I let you go, I want to go back to your time at the New England Patriots. And I got to wear your Super Bowl ring. Thank you so much. And I'm going to post that picture again on my Instagram, but it's just so great. It was just great to be able to put on your ring. But it also made me think about, a lot of people have turned that were fans of football, fans of baseball. I bring up my husband again and a lot of his friends. They were so upset with the NFL. They were so upset with the fact that there was this kind of woke scenario that was happening across the country. It became very political in baseball as well. And a lot of the guys just stopped watching. They were angry. They were angry that all of a sudden their favorite sports became a place for political statements, a platform where people would be slamming on conservative thought, or in any sense. It didn't matter if it was conservative or Democrat. They just wanted it to be a free zone so that, they could watch their sports, men and women alike, who are fans of the game. And all of a sudden it became a political hodgepodge.
Right. Sports have always had a special place in American culture because I believe sports represent the best of American values, meritocracy, right? Coming together, people from different backgrounds, striving towards a common goal, competitive excellence, performance. I mean, there's a reason why, we call American sports championships world championships, okay? Because we're the best in the world. The American people have always loved that. And so it's been very saddening and frustrating, and it's made me very angry, just like your husband, to see the wokeness penetrate, these sports institutions. And people are turning it off. I mean, there's a reason why the World Series has had its lowest ratings in the history of Major League Baseball, why the NBA Finals have had their lowest ratings in the history of the NBA, why the NFL over the past few years, since the Kaepernick debacle and since the debacles of the past couple of years have seen drops in ratings and revenue. People are shutting it off.
Even Major League Baseball was like, I mean, it was just like people were like, I'm done.
Yeah, it's totally out of control, and these sports leagues, they're going to feel it at the bottom line. That kind of thing is not sustainable. And so they better fix it in a hurry, or else people are going to go. They're going to vote with their feet. They're going to vote with their clicks and their page views and their viewing, and they're going to go do other things. And if these sports leagues, try to bombard us with anti-American values, then they have no one to blame but themselves when people shut it off for good.
That really makes me sad. It really makes me sad, because even my husband, I tell him all the time, babe, go back. You got to listen to the baseball games. You got to get back into it, because that was the one thing. I mean, he's a soldier like you. He's retired. He was blinded in Afghanistan. So one of his favorite things to still do is listen to sports, especially baseball, because of the play-by-play on the radio, and NFL too. He loves it. But it just got too hard for him. It was too frustrating. When he'd hear, oh, they took a knee, or, the major league is moving everything, from Georgia to, so it was just very hard for him. Do you think, like, if something like that happens, are people going to just start their own leagues, like private leagues, where like people won't even have to, I mean, I don't think, like, something totally different? I mean, is there a chance of that? I don't know. Or will they learn their lesson?
Yeah, they're going to migrate to leagues that reflect their values. And we spoke earlier about the UFC. I mean, the UFC, in contrast to some of these other woke sports leagues, the UFC has leaned into red-blooded Americans. I mean, they have leaned into traditional American sports fans, and that's why their popularity is exploding right now. That's why it's taking off. Is because they've carved out that lane as the counter-programming to the radical left production that some of the traditional American sports leagues are doing. And so, I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see, sports leagues kind of picking a side, which way they're going to go. Are they going to go hard left, or are they just going to stay, with their fans, with their base? It's kind of you can kind of extrapolate that concept into politics as well. But, I encourage these sports leagues to remember their viewers, remember their fans, and remember that also that a lot of these sports leagues, they operate under some kind of interesting antitrust exemptions that their political representatives can always reevaluate. I was, not to get too deep around the rabbit hole here, but a lot of these big cities, these blue cities, they had these kind of drive-by confiscatory tax structures that were specifically targeted towards visiting professional sports teams. That it was ruled unconstitutional. There was a former NFL player named Hunter Hillenmeyer who successfully sued a couple of these cities because really they had these city laws that were structured to just essentially steal money from visiting professional athletes who were just in town to play the one game and then leave town. So, I'm not saying that's not a specific reason why I'm going to DC, but I do want to blow up politics as usual in certain respects. And I want to lay down a marker that if you're going to try to antagonize certain groups of people through greed or making a political statement, then we're watching and we have an answer for you.
Yeah, maybe you could lose some of those dollars, right, from those sports players as well. I think that's awesome that you brought up the UFC fighter Bryce Mitchell from Arkansas, because and before we close, I want to give him a little shout out. Do you know him? Do you know him personally?
So I don't know him personally, but I Arkansas, it's a small state. You're never 1 or 2 degrees of separation from each other. So I know a lot of his friends. He went to Harding University in Searcy in White County, Arkansas, which is a great faith-based university. And we all love what he's doing. We're proud of him. He's speaking the truth. He was he's getting a lot of publicity now, but he made some very bold statements here in Arkansas 2 years ago about masking kids. This is, and not to go, into this, realm, but it's the truth. It's the reality that in Arkansas right now. So in New York City, masks are optional for kids in school. In certain other, far left Democrat states and cities, masks are now optional for kids in school. But in the Little Rock, Arkansas public school district, masks are still mandatory for kids in school. And so that's what, I use that anecdote to express to people that it's not just about electing more Republicans. You have to have the right leaders. And Bryce Mitchell, he was very outspoken against forcibly masking kids 2 years ago, when it was not popular, when he took a lot of heat for it. But of course, he turned out to be right. A lot of Arkansans agreed with him. And, our RINO leadership in this state still hasn't learned their lessons.
You know what? 100%. I'm with you, and I'm with Bryce Mitchell on that. And you're absolutely right. We need to look at our communities first and then out. And we need to vote in the people that are really going to do the hard work. We don't need any more rhinos in Washington, D.C. We don't. Jake, you're right. I mean, we need people that are going to go up there and shake the tree and shake those limbs until everything falls off of it so we can see clearly what, clear up the mess. Just shine light on the truth. And we can fix our nation, but we can't fix it if we don't vote the right people in. You guys, listen, if you're out there, if you're from Arkansas, don't just vote for the name that you know or just for the party. Don't do that. Vote for people that are going to make a difference, like Jake and others. And by the way, even down to your school board. I mean, know who's on the school board, know who's your state legislature. I mean, these are things that we've got to get back into being active members of our community. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show, Jake. You're awesome. You are, I want to bring you back all the time. I mean, I'm like ready to go work for your campaign right now. It's crazy. You're great. I mean, I love what you had to say. It's really important. Arkansas is lucky.
And as you said, I mean, you made some great points there, and it's what Ben Franklin said. It's a republic if you can keep it, and that's a question we have to keep answering ourselves. As Reagan said, freedom is only one generation away from extinction, and we have to keep it. We have to be active. We have to be engaged. If we want to live in a constitutional republic, we have to take ownership of it. It's not someone else's problem. It starts with us.
And let me tell you, I'm bringing you back on the show because I think that's awesome. I want to follow you along the campaign trail, want to see what's going on. You are going to make huge changes in this world, Jake Bequette. You're going to do some great things. I really believe that. And you already have. So, I mean, anything you ever need, you want to come on the show, talk about your non-for-profit and all the great work you're doing out there, I'd be more than happy to have you on. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show.
Thanks for having me, Sara.
So who knows? We might be saying Senator Bequette soon. Who knows? Who knows? Wherever the tide turns, this is going to be one of the biggest elections that I think we have ever seen in American history. But before we get to the opinion part of this podcast, I want to talk to you a little bit about Dr. Mike Fulgens. He's America's Gold expert, and he's the 2021 Numismatic Dealer of the Year. And he is predicting, as I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but we can see what's happening with inflation, that silver prices will continue to rise as inflation and industrial use follow upward trends. Guys, it's the time to buy silver. This is why his company, Universal Coin and Bullion, is now offering you a new 2022 genuine 1-ounce silver American Eagle coin at just $28 with free shipping direct to you. Everyone should own a percentage of precious metals. So call 1-800-UCB-GOLD. That is 1-800-UCB-GOLD, Universal Coin and Bullion today. Be sure to mention me by name when you call. That's 1-800-UCB-GOLD to get a tangible asset that you can actually hold in your hand. Call 1-800-UCB-GOLD, Universal Coin and Bullion, and their expert team of representatives will help you order your $28 American Silver Eagle coin today. 1-800-UCB-GOLD. Don't forget to tell them that Sara sent you. I got to tell you, Jake Bequette is like a breath of fresh air. I mean, he is young. He's smart. He cares about his constituents in Arkansas. He's well-rounded. He is like, man, everybody wants their kid to be Jake Bequette, right? But more importantly, he cares about our nation. He cares about what we're fighting for. And that's why I wanted him on the show. And that's why I wanted to give him a chance to, lay out his platform. Guys, November 2022, this year, it's our election. This is ours to take back. We come from a nation that allows us that. We're a republic. We're a democracy. We have the authority to do that because these lawmakers work for us. And it's just that easy. We can vote them out and we can vote new ones in. If the RINOs aren't doing their job, vote them out. Vote them out. It's going to be up to us to take our country back, folks. It's going to be up to each and every one of us to be actively involved in our communities, from the local level all the way to the state, all the way to the national level. And it really doesn't take that much. It just takes us a moment to find out who our representatives are, what's going on in our communities, what's going on in our kids' schools, in order to make the right decisions when we get to the polls. That's what we need to do. We are an awesome, awesome nation. And when you talk to someone like Jake Bequette, you get that hope, right? You feel hopeful. I am hopeful. I am hopeful that there are enough Jake Bequettes and enough of us out there that are going to make a difference and that are going to save our nation for our children, for our grandchildren, and for future generations. And as a matter of fact, for the world. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. God bless you. God bless our great nation. And God bless the great state of Texas and Arkansas too.
New polls show most Americans do blame Biden for high gas prices and want him to increase domestic production. Democrats in Maryland are howling mad because Governor Hogan is no longer requiring a college degree for many state jobs. And the Senate agrees to make daylight saving time permanent. I'm Greg Corombos. Join Jim Garrity of National Review and me each weekday for the 3 Martini Lunch podcast. We'll give you the good, bad, and crazy news of the day for conservatives and lots of laughs too. Follow the 3 Martini Lunch on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.